Japanese Canadians discover their ancestral roots and a renewed love of the game playing hockey in Japan.
Hi there, I'm Tom Harrington. Welcome once again to the Sports Journal. We like to think of hockey as our game, but as we see throughout the NHL and even in the junior ranks, the game belongs to people well beyond our borders, even as far off as the Far East. Japan, to most of us, is a nation of baseball fans, but hockey has a rich history there too, and Canadians have played and continue to play a major role in its popularity. Many of them are Japanese Canadians whose hockey careers have been reborn in the land of the rising sun. But the players' ancestry doesn't make their life off the ice any less challenging. Freelance broadcaster Jim Mullen brings us this full edition documentary.
The Nagano Games, 1998. Like any host country, Japan wanted to pull out all the stops to show its best face to the world.
Japan competing in hockey for the first time since 1980. Dave King's involved with that team.
The main players on that, the 7 Gaijin Samurai, were foreigners. They're all now Japanese citizens, but there were 6 Japanese Canadians. There's 1 Japanese American.
In one particular sport, the Japanese would get a lot of help from Canada.
It's Austria in a position to win.
Shortly after being awarded the Nagano Games in 1991, the Japanese Ice Hockey Federation faced a dilemma.
There's Matthew Kabayama.
If they only used Japanese-developed players, they faced humiliation at the hands of the world's best. So the Japanese searched the hockey world for so-called heritage players, foreign players of Japanese descent, and placed them in the Japan Ice Hockey League.
Imu, unbelievable against Belarus in an earlier game. And
with a kid from Surrey, BC, leading the way in goal, Japan did not lose face.
Shin Yahata is Dave King's selection.
A major part of Team Japan's success was the performance of Japanese-Canadian goaltender Dusty Imu. In 1987, he was rated the top goaltender by the NHL's Central Scouting Bureau. However, in his most important games, Imu ended up wearing the rising sun and not the maple leaf. More than a decade before, the 18-year-old rookie lost his confidence playing in the Western League.
We're only 18, 19, 20 years old. We're not super hockey gods here, and that's what the WHL is all about. It's a learning league. I was just a kid, and I didn't deal with it well, and next thing I know, the season passed me by, and that was it. That changed my whole career.
Imu played with 3 teams in 4 seasons, and he was never drafted by the NHL. In 1992, he signed to play pro with Fort Wayne of the International Hockey League, and it didn't go well.
I hated hockey. I wouldn't have said it at the time, but like, the feelings were hate.
At the end of that season, Imu was back in Surrey and out of hockey. Then, a team in Japan contacted him in search of a goaltender.
I was doing nothing, and then I got the call, and it changed my life. It changed my whole life around.
Ryan Fujita was a skilled but undersized forward in the Western League. He had abandoned the idea of a professional career. But in 1992, a team in the Japan League got in touch with him.
Seibu contacted me and a few other players and invited us to a camp in Calgary. Went and participated. You know, kind of show them what I could do. And a year later, they asked me to come back and come to Japan and play.
Former Medicine Hat Tiger Matt Kabayama took a different road. He played 2 seasons professionally in Germany. Then he gave up on hockey and returned to his studies in Calgary. He arrived to his club's rookie camp in the summer of 1994.
Don't know a soul. So I'm coming in and I'm practicing and everything else, but they don't really understand why I'm there. They don't understand that there's maybe going to be foreign players coming.
For all the Japanese Canadian players, the Japan League gave them a second chance at the game.
I learned to enjoy the game again, and now I don't just enjoy it, I love it, and I want to keep playing now, and it's great.
Organized hockey has been played in Japan for nearly 70 years. The six-team Japan Ice Hockey League was formed in 1965.
Here's Gretzky moving it out front. Comes to Gregg. Score!
NHLers such as Randy Gregg were part of a contingent of Canadian imports in the JIHL in the 70s and 80s. The doors closed to the imports in the early 1980s. Hockey's popularity was on the wane, and imported players were expensive. The Japanese Federation decided to operate the league with domestic players only. It stayed that way for more than a decade, but when Japan got the Olympics, the rules changed. In 1993, 3 spots were open for heritage players on each team. 2 years later, each club was allowed to add 2 foreigners. The Federation hoped the rise in the standard of play would help the Japanese team prepare for Nagano. Former Canadian national team players such as Calgary's Chris Wright found work in the J. There are still only 6 teams in the Japan League. The 2 Tokyo-based teams are owned by the Seibu Company. Seibu is best known in Japan as a company operating retail chains, real estate, and a commuter train network. The Seibu Empire is owned by Yoshiaki Susumi. He was once known as the richest man in the world. He's in charge of the Japan Ice Hockey Federation, and he also spearheaded the recruitment of heritage players. Imu, Kabayama, and Fujita are the Canadian heritage players on the Seibu Tetsuo Bears. Wright is one of the 2 foreigners.
I'd heard that the Japanese people were very classy. They treated you with a lot of respect, and I felt that right away. And that was nice. So from the get-go, I felt comfortable here, and I still do now. You kind of feel it's like, you know, okay, it's not just the business here. I mean, there's some heart, and they do care about you know, about your life and your family.
Seibu owns the Prince Hotel chain. This is not a Prince Hotel.
When I first came here, staying at the dorm, they had me in a room maybe 10 feet by 4.
Kabayama spent the majority of his first season here at the Seibu team dormitory. These days, only the younger players live in the dorm, while the older Japanese players and imports live at home. In the off-season, Japanese players are transferred into company jobs. Traditionally, the players are offered lifetime employment. Ride a Seibu train, and you may see a hockey star from yesteryear. Chris Bright has done his best to adapt to living and working in Tokyo. Learning Japanese is not easy.
So I learned a few words on the ice. Off the ice, I read quite a bit, started teaching myself.
I e-cycle その人と Ryan 後で
And it wasn't until the summer following the first season that I actually really jumped into it. When I knew I was coming back for the second season, and both my wife and I took lessons at the University of Calgary. 8 to 1 for 3 weeks, 5 days a week. I'll get you into it.
Ryan Fujita was the lone foreigner on the Seibu Bears in his rookie season. Equipment manager Yutaka Kurabayashi was his only English-speaking friend.
He had nobody to talk to, and He used to come to my store every day, spend all day there, because I was the only guy who speaks English around then.
Tomo was on the back side, so maybe we can run a switch.
I think I would have gone nuts if it wasn't for him just, you know, invite me over to the skate house, read the newspaper, have a coffee.
Once they get set up.
As a player coach for the past 2 seasons, Matt Kabayama needs Yutaka by his side.
For myself, he's my left arm, but he's had to learn how to handle how I speak and to translate some of my my slang and the way I use words.
There is a centuries-old tradition which extends to business, education, and sport. The Senpai-Kohai system is based on respect and age. Older players are the senpais, and the younger players are the kohais. The kohais will carry out numerous menial tasks to eventually earn the respect of the older players.
The younger players will do the laundry and carry it for them to the rink and, you know, dry it for them and stuff like that. They'll unpack the bags.
But we take care of our own things just because we never expected anyone else to do it at home, so we kind of live by our traditions as well.
Senpai-Kohai also extended to the way the game was played.
When we first got here, we kind of eliminated the Senpai-Kohai on the ice. We couldn't change their whole tradition because, I mean, that's just not possible.
Going back a few years that I used to see this, but a younger player hitting an older player on the opposite team, if you gave him a pretty good pop or maybe even injured him, he was there to give him a tap on the shin pad to not necessarily apologize, but just to show respect.
Senpai-Kohai can be frustrating, especially for the younger players. They're left sitting on the bench while their older teammates play, holding back the development of new talent. Imu knows that the Japanese players will only change on their own terms, regardless of what the Canadians say.
The Japanese players kind of say, okay, you have your little way, but life goes on here. Okay, you just jabber, whatever, but we'll go about our business the way we feel fit. They kind of give you the nod, like, yeah, whatever. They just don't feel like changing. They let us have our space, let us feel like we're running a little more than we are.
When the Sports Journal returns, changing on the fly. Cebu's foreign players adjust to life off the ice.
The frenzied pace of Tokyo, a metropolis unlike any other in the world. It can leave a new arrival slack-jawed and overwhelmed.
Coming from Foremost, a town of 500 people, to a city of 18 million is quite a change.
I was excited to get here, but then once I got here, I was like, what did I get into? Like, this is so different.
Seeing the maze of people, it was mind-boggling, and I was following people around, so I didn't, of course, have a clue where I was going.
I mean, you get on the train, you get down to Shinjuku Station, you are literally getting squished in there. Coming from Canada, we like our space, we have it, so we like it.
As you can see, it's pretty obvious that just riding the trains here can be demanding at the best of times. But what about the demands of adapting to Japanese culture?
The best way to deal with it sometimes is just kind of put yourself out of the element and just kind of be an observer from the outside and just let it all go over your head, or else you won't be able to deal with it. Ready?
Just a 40-minute train ride from the center of Tokyo is the Imu household. Cebu provides a house and minivan for Dusty, his wife Rhonda, and their children during their annual 9-month stay in Tokyo.
Raising a family here is not something where you can have a good time learning the trials and tribulations. It's not a fun experience.
During the 2000 Japan League Championships, Dusty was stranded on the road and separated from his family. Their youngest child stopped breathing and went into seizure. Rhonda was alone in Tokyo.
I didn't know if he was dead or alive in my arms.
She panicked and rushed outside, searching for help.
I was in the middle of the street screaming and crying, and I realized right then, this is awful. This is the moment that you hope would never happen in a foreign country, you know, where you can't speak the language and you can't communicate with the people.
A passerby on a bicycle stopped and called for help. After a trip to the hospital, all was well.
Dealing with that every single day, so dealing with her problems. She can't speak the language really at all, and so everything gets filtered through me, which can be tough.
The heritage players, known as Nikkei-jin, became Japanese citizens so they could play with the national team. The lone American Nikkei-jin on Seibu is Minnesotan Dan Daikawa. Like many of Japanese descent in North America after World War II, his parents focused on speaking English only.
My father never really spoke Japanese to me around me growing up, and I wish he would have now that I've been here. But I think when he was living in the States, I think that his family made sure that they only spoke English instead of Japanese, just to be safe and not be ridiculed all the time themselves.
So just how Japanese are the Nikkei-jin? Seibu's captain, Takayuki Kibori, gives his personal assessment. It doesn't seem to matter to the fans just how Japanese the players are. Unlike some other Japanese sports, fans can get face-to-face with the players. Some players speculate that's the reason why 2/3 of their fans are women. For a Canadian, the sights, sounds, and tastes are different at Hockey Night in Tokyo. The coffee comes in heated cans. There are things for the sweet tooth, and octopus at the takoyaki truck. And of course, you have a choice of 3 kinds of noodles. As for the fans, they have a different look. The sound of the crowd is also unique.
In the breaks, you can really hear them, and kind of sometimes you'll laugh like, this is just silly. They got their little clappers that they're clapping on the chairs, and it's different.
Japanese players bid a polite good evening as they enter the dressing room.
Use the boards.
The atmosphere in the dressing room is an orderly collision of cultures. However, the officiating is not so orderly at times.
There's officiating here? I thought they just threw the puck out and you just play it. It was really different. I think what happened is that they were not used to players talking back to them. And they brought import referees from Europe and stuff, which is totally different than Japan and Canada. You know, and then so we were trying to adjust. Japanese players were trying to adjust, and it was just a mess. It still is a mess, but.
And they stretch a lot, you know. Bad ice, make a simple play. Use boards, boys.
Since the arrival of foreign players, Seibu has captured 3 league championships. In February of 2001, they won the 68th edition of the All Japan Tournament. The previous year, Seibu beat the Kokudo Bunnies for the Japan Cup. It was the only time they had met their Tokyo rival in the championship since the return of foreign players.
Nothing better than winning a championship with a team. I don't care if it's the Stanley Cup or the Memorial Cup or the Japan Cup. It all means a whole lot when you're on a team and you strive for something for so long and you get it. You know, we didn't get anything in the Olympics. We got a pat on the back and a little bonus, you know, from the federation. But it was a great experience.
Back at the team compound, Susumi, the owner of Seibu, is on hand to present the 34th Japan Cup to the champions. For Imu, he's come about as far as a Nikkei Jinkan in Japan, but he knows he will never be Japanese.
Some things are ours to share, and some things are theirs. Nothing here is mine.
The Sports Journal on CBC News World and CBC Sports Saturday will return in a moment. Coming up. Right now, here's a look at one of the stories you'll be seeing on a future edition of the Sports Journal.
I'm Terry Walker. In the weeks ahead, sports cards. From innocent diversion to investment, and on to the current trend of cards as memorabilia.